students, this is another lesson on solving equations by elimination. In the first video that we looked at together, we solved equations in the same way using elimination, but in the first video, the coefficient was the same number. And all we had to do was look at what the signs were, add and subtract, find for the other variable, plug that variable into the original, one of the two original equations, and then show what our solution is. What we're going to do this time, though, is we're going to use equations where the coefficient is not the same number. So we can see here in number 1, we have negative 4x minus 15y equals negative 17. We also have negative x plus 5y equals negative 13. We have to make the coefficients on either the x or the y the same thing. And we have a choice. In this case, we're only going to have to change one of the equations. So we're going to take the bottom equation and we're going to decide, do we want to make the coefficient in front of x the same as 4? Or do we want to make the coefficient in front of y the same as 15? How do we do that? If we want to choose 4, we're going to multiply everything in the bottom equation times 4. If we wanted to make the coefficient in front of y the same as 15, 5 times 3 would give you 15, so we multiply everything times 3. I'm going to use making the coefficient for y 15. So what we're going to do is we're going to put parentheses around the bottom equation. I'm going to multiply everything in the equation times 3. So distributive property, 3 times negative x is the same as 3 times negative 1. So negative 3x. 3 times 5y plus 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times negative 13. 3 times 13 is 39, and that will be a negative. Now we're going to go ahead and bring the top equation down. We have negative 4x minus 15 y equals negative 17. Okay? And now we're going to do the elimination process like we did before. We made the coefficient in front of y the same by multiplying everything by 3. So now we have a negative 15y and a positive 15y, and we know if the signs are different, we're going to add. Remember, we put an addition sign out to the side, and we circle it. So we're going to add everything together. Minus 7x. Negative 4 plus negative 3. The y's cross out. And then we have two negatives being added together. We have negative 17 and negative 39, which will be equal to negative 56. So now in order to solve for x, we're going to divide each side of the equation by negative 7. And the x then will be equal to negative 56 divided by negative 7, will be equal to 8. So we found the number for the first variable, 8. Now what do we have to do? Plug in x back in either one of these equations. I'm just going to use the bottom one because it's going to be the easiest to plug 8 in for x. So we're going to rewrite the bottom one, minus, remember it says x, right? And x is 8. So I'm going to say minus 8 plus 5y, and that's going to be equal to negative 13. So add 8 on both sides. We're just going to find for y now. Bring the 5y down. And negative 13 plus 8 is equal to a negative 5. Divide by 5 on both sides. Negative 5 divided by 5 is negative 1. So the solution for these equations is going to be x equals 8, y equals negative 1. Remember, we write the solution down as like a point on a graph. So there would be the final answer for number 1. For number 1, we only had to change one of the equations to make the coefficient the same. In number 2, we're going to have to change both equations to make a coefficient equal to each other. Now, the easiest way to do this is, first of all, decide, do you want to make x's the same or the y's? It doesn't matter which one you choose. It just matters, though, that we'll just take the coefficient in front of each variable and multiply the top by the bottom coefficient and the bottom by the top coefficient. So let's just use the x's, okay? So what's the coefficient in front of the variable x in the bottom equation? It's a 3. So we're going to put everything in parentheses, and we're going to multiply everything using the distributive property by 3. So let's just go ahead and do that. 3 times 5x is 15x. 3 times 4y is 12y. And 3 times negative 14 is going to be negative 42. Now, we said we're going to have to change both equations so the coefficient in front of the variable will be the same. We used the 3 from the bottom equation. Now we're going to use the 5 from the top equation. We're going to multiply everything on the bottom then times 5. 5 times 3x, look, see, we're making the coefficients the same. This is how we're going to use elimination, 15x. 5 times 6y will be 30y. And 5 times 6 is equal to 30. In order to use elimination, what was our rule? If the signs are different, then we add. If the signs are the same, we subtract. So in this case, we're going to subtract. 15x minus 15x is 0. 12x minus, so 12 minus 30y will be a negative 18y. And then negative 42 minus 30 would be a negative 72. Let's find for y. Negative 18 divided on both sides will give us y. How many times will 18 go into 72? It's going to be 4 times, a positive 4. Just like before now, we're going to take the y, what it's equal to, and plug it back into either equation. So let's just stick with the top one right here. We'll have 5x plus 4y, but in this case, what? Y is 4, so we don't have to write y, we'll just write what y is equal to, equals negative 14. So now we have 5x plus 16 is equal to negative 14. In order to find for x, then, we want to move the 16 over. So then we end up with 5x equal negative 30. In order to find for x, we're going to divide both sides by 5. And we find out then that x would be equal to negative 6. How do we show our final answer? We show it in the form of a solution as if it's a dot on a graph. Negative 6, comma, 4. And that's the solution for number 2. I want to go over 2 more things with you just as a review. If during finding a solution to a problem you end up with 2 numbers equaling each other, you can just simply write that the answer is infinite solutions if the 2 numbers equal each other. And what if you end up with a solution where one number does not equal another number? You can just simply write the words no solution. Alright, thank you for watching this video on finding solutions to equations using elimination.